Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Excuse me! Taxi! What are you doing?
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby, we have the great former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, wonderful to have you here. Obviously, it's Rita, and we have Judge Richard Weinberg. We have the great Lee Greenwood also here with us, and also Craig Eaton. So let's get right to Iran. What do you think is going to happen? Because they're talking. There was another round of talks today with Steve Witkoff, and also with Jared Kushner. It sounded promising, but then we're also moving the carrier group in there. What do you think is going to happen? More talking, or do you think we might see maybe some action, Mr. Secretary?
Rita, it's great to be with you. It's great to be with you as well, Lee. Fantastic. And you had my former professor, Mr. Dershowitz, on as well. So all good. Look, my sense is that the Iranians have no interest in actually cutting a deal, and they are trying to drag this thing out. And that any deal that they'd actually be prepared to sign, right, isn't going to be satisfactory. President Trump's not going to do what President Obama did and sign a weak agreement that allows the Iranians to continue to build their nuclear program out. That's what they've offered so far, with no ability to even verify what they're actually doing. And so my sense is President Trump probably knows that. I'm sure Mr. Kushner and Mr. Witkoff probably know that too. But they're trying to give them a chance, make sure we try diplomacy all the way through. But in the end, I think this regime is recalcitrant, and they will continue to try to be the world's largest state sponsor of terror, and it's going to require more pressure and more action from not only us, but our friends in the Middle East as well.
Judge Weinberg.
Mr. Secretary, good to talk to you again, sir. Let me ask you this question. Why are they just talking about nuclear containment when you have an uprising for the first time of significance in the whole history of the 47 years that this theocracy had this dictatorship? Don't they have an obligation and a moral responsibility to the people they encourage to protest?
Well, President Trump made pretty clear. He said, I think the quote is, help is on the way. I've always known President Trump to deliver against commitments that he makes like that. And so, yes, I am very hopeful that we will give the Iranian people the chance to do what it is they desperately want to do. They want to overthrow this regime. They want to live their lives, raise their families. They don't want to live under a thugocracy like they have today. So I do think President Trump will have to do that. I hope it's not just about nuclear weapons. They have a huge ballistic missile program that threatens us all. We talked about their terror proxies in the region. They've held so many of us hostage. There are still Americans that are detained in Iran. Yes, I hope the president understands that this just isn't just about the nuclear program. I'm confident that he does.
Craig Eaton.
Mr. Secretary, let's not forget the fact that there is a big extension of Iran here in the United States. When Biden opened up the borders, tens of thousands of people came in, probably many Iranian terrorists that are here living among us right now, that we don't know where they are or who they are, just ready to, implode at any point.
Well, look, I have a personal stake in this one. The Iranian regime has a fatwa on me. They're trying to kill me. And so I do worry about the fact that I am confident that whether they are Iranians themselves, members of Hezbollah, or just Shia contractors, that we now have Iranian power inside of our country ready to launch. And so there is a real risk. We've seen that in Europe. We've seen assassination efforts in Europe. We saw one in Washington, D.C. Years ago against the then Saudi ambassador to the United States. The Iranians will stop at nothing to try and convince the rest of the world that they should be left alone and continue to engage in the kind of behavior they've engaged in since 1979.
Secretary Mike Pompeo, I have to ask you, because the Supreme Leader came out a couple hours ago and he was threatening to sink U.S. warships. What kind of technology does Iran have? I mean, how much of that is bluster? What do you think is real?
Well, I think one of the reasons President Trump's sending so much American hardware and so many of our most talented folks there is to protect against exactly that. The Iranians do have very capable systems, although we have seen the Israelis and the Americans be able to defeat them and, frankly, fly over their capital and not even get shot at. And so I think mostly what you're hearing is bluster. That doesn't mean there's not risk. It doesn't mean that a missile won't land or a ship won't be struck. But President Trump is making sure that we have a maximum amount of firepower so that we can deliver precisely not only the offensive effort needed in the event that the diplomacy ends the way I think it will in a failed transaction, but more importantly, he thinks he's got the weaponry there to make sure we keep our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen and Marines all safe as they can be, and that we protect our allies and friends in the region. They're very worried. The Saudis, the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis are all worried that the Iranians will strike against them. They are not without power. They have a capable set of military tools. That's one of the reasons we need to make sure that this regime doesn't stay in power.
You know, I want to switch gears and go to the Munich Security Conference. It got a lot of headlines of late. You have AOC over there, who I couldn't figure out where Venezuela was, saying it was below the equator. What did you make of all that when you watched that? And one thing we talked about yesterday was AOC. And you also had Gavin Newsom, and they were, bashing the president, bashing law enforcement overseas. It used to sort of be the old days. I'm looking at everybody here in the studio. It used to be the old days where you wouldn't bash America overseas. If you kept your sort of internal politics in America, but you don't go overseas and bash the country, bash law enforcement, bash the president, even if you were politically disparate. What did you make of that, Mr. Secretary?
Oh, my gosh. Well, first of all, I mean, it was embarrassing to send a congresswoman over who couldn't even speak about Taiwan, as if she'd never thought about it. It's really quite something to think an elected official who traveled to Munich to be part of a foreign policy conference to stumble and speak the way that she did. And you're right. There's a long history which says when you're overseas, you kind of keep it to yourself, even if you disagree. I think those days may well behind us. They certainly demonstrated that. But even more important than that, I think what you saw is the Democrat Party has no coherent theory about how to protect Western civilization, which was what was so important about what Secretary Rubio said, right? He talked about the fundamentals. Why it is we need Europe to get its act together, because the values that we have, right? Mr. Greenwood speaks about that he's proud to be an American. He's proud because we have always had this set of important values and an understanding of patriotism. Those two demonstrated they lack that fundamental quality.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and I appreciate that comment. Does Iran have any allies, anybody that would actually protect their back or go to war with them if they had to?
By the way, I want to say this is the first. We have Lee Greenwood asking Secretary Pompeo. I can tell we're beaming here. This is so great.
I love it. I am humbled. Mr. Greenwood, they don't have any allies that are going to be capable of truly helping them. The Chinese and the Russians are both with them. They've got defense agreements with them. But the Chinese Communist Party has demonstrated time and time again, when it's crunch time, they are not going to be anywhere near helping the Iranians. So I think they will, in the end, be on their own. I guess there was a training exercise today with the Russians, the Iranians, but the Chinese understand that this is not their fight. They can't project that power. And the Iranians should not be counting on support from either the Chinese Communist Party or the Russians that have demonstrated they couldn't do even a simple offensive strike into Ukraine. And were defeated by a nation much smaller than theirs and led them to be very, very unsuccessful in their efforts to take Kyiv and take Ukraine.
And by the way, before we let you go, the Board of Peace is going to be meeting later this week. A whole bunch of world leaders are coming in. This is the rebuilding of Gaza. What do you think is going to come of that? And how do you see that working out, Mr. Secretary?
So, I was skeptical, but I must say they've made some progress. It looks like they've got several thousand Indonesians who are prepared to come and help. So it looks like they're beginning to build a coalition that might actually create a stabilization force there to give the people in Gaza a chance to rebuild and to restructure. Having said that, Hamas is not yet disarmed. And so long as there are weapons in the hand of those guys, really, this, right? They're a resistance movement. What do resistance movements do? They resist. And I've seen no evidence that those remaining senior Hamas leaders have any intention of actually going away quietly. So I think President Trump's got the right end of the stick here. He's trying to make progress, but there's an awful lot of work that remains to be done.
And Judge Weinberg, real quick.
Mr. Secretary, I'm very concerned about the presence of Turkey, Pakistan, and Qatar on the so-called Board of Peace. I don't trust them worth a bit, and I think there are going to be influences there that could destabilize the situation. What are your thoughts?
Yep. So there's real risk of that. No doubt about it. The Turks have an agenda there for sure. I think, however, President Trump probably decided that to make this work, he needed them to be at least part of it. What I'm expecting to see is that as you see the Board of Peace vote, they will be peripheral players, not decision makers. That we won't allow the Turks to have folks on the ground in Gaza. And if you get all of that right, the fact that they were members of the Board of Peace will turn out to have been immaterial. We ought not trust anything but our allies and friends to be part of building out a stabilization that can actually lead to a Gaza that doesn't threaten Israel and the neighboring states as well.
Yeah, let's hope. Boy, that would be incredible if there's a refurbishment of Gaza and peace in Gaza. In our lifetime, I'll be happy. We're all praying here in the studio.
Amen.
Yeah. Mr. Secretary, we love you. Thank you. It's so great to talk with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bless
you all. Have a good evening.